Welcome everybody, you know who I am by now, and we're back on the flat renovation. Can you remember this entrance hall that I did, how many weeks, how many months ago? Now, we used Bedeck spray daylight on the ceiling, you see that? And that was brushed. The paint on the walls was the scrubbable matte Valspar Trade in that blue, and I did all the woodwork after it. Can you remember? I put all the panelling in. And I painted that in a metal exterior paint, which was Valspar Trade as well. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. It didn't sit right with me, this colour. It didn't sit right with me. So I am going to be redoing this. I know it's going to take up another weekend, but it's got to be done. This section, I'll have something a little bit different, and we'll come on to that on another video. But for now, I'm going to redo the ceiling, because I'll be honest, the spray daylight, if you've seen that video where I sprayed it, is lovely. I just wasn't too happy with the way the finish was on this ceiling with it being brushed. I thought it was fine, but then when I came in at certain times of the day, I could see, particularly, I've gone dark, just round those areas there, in front of the light, down to where the Veluxes are, look very, it actually looked very flashy, like brush marking flashy. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to redo it. And you're going to say, Phil, what are you going to do it in this time round? Do you know what? I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do it in. Right, you might have seen the thumbnail. This is a Polish company, and I'm going to give a big shout out to Patryk at Iconic Walls. They're based in Leicester, who actually reached out to me and said, Phil, I've seen your videos, put that on my shoulder, seen your channel, very impressed. Well, I'm hoping he says he was very impressed, and he reached out to me and said, Phil, I've got a few products, would you like to try them? I'll send them to you. And he sent me 2.5 litres of this Millennium AntiReflex White. Now, this is supposed to be their equivalent to Jeger AntiReflex 2. So what better place to try this on, where I've not been happy with the paint. I'm not saying I'm not happy with the spraying of the Bedeck spray daylight, but I'm not happy how it brushed. So it'd be interesting for me, because I've only got 2.5 litres, it's not a lot. This area is just enough for it. I'm going to give it 2 coats of this, and we'll see what it's like. So, be an interesting one. A Polish company in the UK, Patryk at Iconic Walls as their distributor, and I feel get a bit of a buzz because somebody seen my channel and said, Phil, I've got something, I want you to try it, and I'm going to try it, and I'll give you my honest opinion. So no sponsorship, there's no money changed hands, other than Patryk's gave me a reach out to say, I've got some products that I'd like you to try. Now, I've got some other products from Patryk that will do these walls in here. So watch this space, something a little bit different. I think you'll like it. So let's say, without further ado, Hugh Parnamigru, I'm going to get some paint out and I'm going to start painting, and let's just see what it's like. I will be brushing it. I won't be spraying it, I'll be brushing it. So catch you in a few minutes. Right, I've got, I mixed it all up, and this is, feels quite thick in the tub, which you'd expect. Now, I don't read Polish, but I've got a feeling, if I look at the numbers on the back, I'm hoping that means that I need to add 5% water. I tried some straight out the tub, just around the window reveals, just round there, and it felt a bit round. And if you don't know what round means, it means it feels a bit thick. So what I did, with what I've actually tipped out, I've put a splash of water into it, mixed it up, thought that it still felt a bit pulley, i.e. round, so I added a little bit more to it. Now, I've probably still got just over half in the tub, so what I've got mixed up, if it's a little bit too thin, I'm not too worried on this first coat. I can always thicken it up for the second coat. So far so good. On these window reveals, it's gone on nicely, it's brushed nicely, and you're going to say what brush you're using, Phil, and I'll show you. I'm using the 88mm, so it's just under 4 inches. It's the Monarch brush, I don't know whether you can see that. It's the Monarch Advanced, and it's from the Monarch Advanced range. Really nice brush. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set the camera up so you can just see me do a little bit of painting. Get out the sun. Yeah, and if by magic the shopkeeper appeared. I'll start doing a little bit of painting, then I'll come off camera, finish it, and then we'll just have a quick talk, and then we'll see what it's like for a second coat. Hopefully 2 to 3 hours recoat time, I'm hoping, but I'll see how it goes. It might be a bit later, might not be today at all, might be tomorrow. So bear with me. Right, I'm all raring to go with this Millennium. Am I Millennium child? No, far from it. The Anti-Reflex White. It's a low VOC, and this is the Extreme Matte. Says Ultra Matte on it, and other than that, it's all Greek to me. Apart from it's all Polish. So can't really tell you any more about it. What it says. Let me see what it's like on the ceiling. And don't forget, I am brushing it. I don't want to use the roller because I want to see what it's like for flashing, because that's the big gripe with decorators, all about the flashing. Looks like I've got a tan. Well, because I have been outside. I'm not one to give praise straight away, but I have to say it's very white. I could see where the bedeck was, where I was going. It was drying off quite quick, or it is drying off quite quick, and I struggled. I'm not saying struggled keeping a wet edge, but I struggled seeing the wet edge. That's why I had to go from one side to the other, just looking back on itself. I can just say, I don't know whether you can, there's certain areas just there are hanging wet at the moment. It's only just been done, don't forget. But on the whole, I'm quite impressed how that's gone on. The bedeck was very dry as an emulsion, so that's probably why I've got that pulling. Feeling a bit thick. The paint, because it was pulling, couldn't really work it. So with it being thinned, it was a bit easier, but wasn't like a silky cream cheese going on or anything like that. Can't have it easy every day, can you? But it's gone on all right. I'm quite impressed how it's brushed. And don't forget, really, if it was a bigger room, I'd be cutting in and rolling it, or even bigger, I'd be spraying it. But that so far is pretty good. I won't subject you to doing a second coat, but what I will do is get a second coat on later today, because I think this will be dry in the next couple of hours, might be a bit longer. Later today, get a second coat on, and I'll give a bit of conclusion on what I'm thinking of it. But so far, so good. I'm pretty impressed, Right, I didn't subject you to a second coat on this ceiling area, but I have to say, very pleasantly surprised. Now, I second coated, I would say probably easily within 2 hours. It's dried off lovely, so I gave it the second coat. I'd still got enough paint in my paint tub, my paint kettle that had thinned down, Still had enough to do a second coat. So actually, out of this 2.5 litre, I've still got quite a lot left. Now, that went on a lot better for the second coat, as I'd anticipate really. Paints always go better on themselves. And I coated up, I started here, brought it all the way across, and then I brought these flanks down. My issue that I had before with the Bedek spray daylight is, if you can just see this curve there, let's see if we can get it there, that curve there, straight across there. When I brought that across, I'd then pick up and bring these down. It was showing flashing, very critical. When I walked in through the door, I could see brush marks and flashing all there, and it was highlighted when the interior light, that light came on at this time of day, because obviously you saw me earlier today, we'd got quite a bit of sunshine coming through. It's now early evening and we're losing the light, but that there was showing very bad brush marks and flashing, and it really annoyed me because it's spray daylights, a good paint, I liked it, but I'm not too happy with the brushing of it. But this is supposed to be on a par with Jeger's AntiReflex 2. Now, I don't know how they get away with it, because this is called AntiReflex. Now, can they get away with it being called AntiReflex? I know they've called it Millennium. So, do we pronounce that Jeger? Jeger? How do you pronounce it? Somebody tell me. But AntiReflex White in the Ultramat, I have to say, after the first coat, you could feel it, and it felt not silky smooth, but it had a nice finish to it. Second coat, do you know what? I'm not seeing any flashing, I'm not seeing anything brush marks. The only thing I did get is a little bit of splatter, mainly because probably I thinned it a little bit too much, but we're painters, we expect a little bit of splatter on our faces. So I'm going to say, this paint's getting a thumbs up for me, and I'm just going to read you the blurb that I've found. It's got the main features of this paint is it's high coverage, the opacity, it's anti-reflex, which nice flat finish, that's good for ceilings, a non-splash non-splash formula. Well, it probably didn't splash, it was more of a case of my brushwork getting spots splashing. Resistance to scrubbing. Now, which is really interesting, because a lot of cheap paints, when people say go for a cheap contract matte emulsion for your ceilings, when you start coming up to paper, like these edges, you can see where I've gone onto the wall, if you start papering up to those and you get a little bit of paste on the surface and you want to wipe it down, cheap contract emulsions, they're known as false opacity paints, because once you get them wet or splash them with water, they revert back to what the original makeup is, which most of them are chalky, and they can wipe off on your sponge. So if it's a paint that can be a resistance to scrubbing, I'd expect, if I was papering up to that edge there, see it? Yeah, look, my finger's giving it a little tickle. Tickle it. I'd expect I could wipe that surface down and not cause any damage. So that's another good point about it. And then the last thing, the ultra matte finish. The can't even say it. So the last point is the ultra matte finish, and I have to say, if you can see it, you can't. I'm looking at it, that is a lovely flat finish, and that's what I wanted. Now, if you remember from a video back there, when I did in the passageway the ceiling's Valspar Trade vinyl matte, that's flashed more than a bloke in a Mac. Didn't like it. That's a ceiling that I'd like to do again, but because I've done so much in there with spraying radiators, done the walls with Ben, and the woodwork is Scuffex, I don't want to go back to redo that ceiling. In here I can go back and redo this ceiling, because I'm going to be doing the walls, and I'm going to be doing this wall in a special Jeger product. I'm also going to be redoing all this panelling. That'll be another video, so watch this space. But I'm going to say thank you again to Patryk of iconicwalls.co.uk. I'll do a link to him down below. Again, no sponsorship, no money's changed hands, other than the fact he's given me well, he's contacted me through social media and says, Phil, do you want to try one of our paints out that we're a distributor for in the UK? I can hear you saying it. I can hear you saying it. 2.5 litres, roughly about £35, £36. It's competition, or this is competition to Tikurilla's Anti-Reflex 2. Now a 10 litre tub with 9 litres of paint in it is roughly about 70 something quid. But as I've always said, if it's a product, let's turn my light on, if it's a product that's good and you like it, you'll lose the cost of your materials in on your quote price, and it's your knowledge of knowing how good a paint is that's why you use it. We don't look at cheap paint. As a firm, we don't look at cheap paint. We look at prices, but we don't look at cheap paint. Cheap is often a case you get what you pay for. This isn't cheap, and I've proved it because as a Polish paint that I've never tried before, I'm impressed with it. And this, I'm going to say it, and I do like Bedek products. I do like Bedek products. I would say this is nicer. This is nicer than the Spray Daylight that I brushed a number of weeks ago. Whether it sprays as well, quite possibly, but I prefer this than what I brushed in here first time round. And on that note, thank you very much. Thanks to Patryk. I'm going to say thanks to the people who are supporting the channel and giving me super thanks, which is down below. If you want to give me super thanks, thank you very much. I love it. Thank you. Watch the videos at the end. I'll see you on the next one, and hopefully the follow on from this will be paneling and doing these walls in here. So watch this space.